And for all those who don't know me, hopefully you will in the short time we get together later on. I'm married, 4 kids, 8 grandchildren, and I come from a small family of 12. 12, yeah, that's not a big family from where I come from. It's fairly standard. They didn't have TV back in the day, or radio. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Okay. But I want to acknowledge the volunteers and for everybody that's here today and all the background work that happens. It really can't happen without you. It's amazing and tremendous what you're able to do for the community in serving. And such an important facet of Christianity is that we serve, because we can talk about the gospel or we can put it into action. My heart is that we actually don't just talk about the gospel, we do something with it that affects somebody else's life. So I want to thank you, all the volunteers. It's awesome. Looking forward to tasting the coffee too, ladies, at some stage. That'd be fantastic. And lovely to meet you, Tim, from New Zealand. Just thought I'd bring some backup today.
Yeah.
So one of the things I thought about, what I would like to share about, is what my ideal year looks like. No. It's actually going to be about what my ideal day looks like, because it's a lot easier in 25 or 30 minutes to get that over. I know, 12 o'clock. So my ideal day was getting up in the morning, spending time with the Lord, spending time in the Word, doing some exercise, and then making my wife breakfast. That's an ideal day starter for me. I hear all the men go, "I'm with you, brother."
Yeah.
Yep. No, you're not.
Ah.
That's the start of my ideal day. The second part of my ideal day is looking at what I have in front of me and what I had to achieve during the day. I currently work as a support worker in disability services. I'm doing a course in life and business coaching. My wife and I also minister in prison ministries, basically at Barallan. We spend time there with young men, showing them and teaching them what it would look like once they get released from prison. So we get quite involved in doing different things. My wife and I believe it's not actually about doing in life, it's about being. There's a big mind shift involved there when you think about it, because doing is so easy for us. We can do a lot of things, but being means we have to step away sometimes and just look at ourselves and say, who am I? What am I really about? And the reality is, for my wife and I, we realised that we were spending more time doing things and less time with what we like to do, which was being with God. So we decided to change our lifestyle, and in 2012, we relocated for a year from Brisbane into California, the US, where we spent some time over there, getting involved in different ministries, but more importantly, learning about what it was like to see the gospel in action. What it actually looks like when people were actually not just told about who Jesus was, but actually experienced it in terms of like healing, provision, understanding, identity, just reaching out and seeing a community where we were based being transformed by the power of God. And for us, it would never have happened unless we'd actually moved away from always being busy and always doing stuff to actually, just spending time with God ourselves and realizing that He set a plan for our lives. He's got a path for us. We actually just needed to spend some time listening. And that's not easy when you're in ministry, is it, Matt? Andrew? Because there's always something that's going to demand your time. And they're all important things, whether you're in business, whether you're doing life coaching, whether you're doing one-on-one ministry at different places. Everybody wants your time. The best investment you could ever make was, and is, step away from a moment and reflect. Think about who you are, what you're actually about, whether you're in business and why you've decided to go into business, and then come back at it again. What that allows you to do is to refocus, to actually get an understanding. You can't do everything in the time allotted to you that people demand from you. You can, however, build a strategy on how you can either delegate or bring people in to help you. It's okay. Jesus did it a lot. He did. He sent out, a number of different disciples all over the place because He couldn't do it by Himself. He built a team. And I like what I see here because there's a team operating here that is helping the community. And for me, that's a great strategy. You can't do everything yourself. Step away, refocus, come back in. It just gives you some breathing space, believe it or not, because sometimes you can be overwhelmed with everybody wanting your time, wanting your focus, wanting your opinion, wanting what it is that takes up your time. So I've learned, and my wife and I both together, to actually step back and allow some breathing space about what it is we want to do. So what that's enabled us both to do is to focus on our community and where we live, getting involved in the broader community through Prison Network, through our church, where we fellowship together. But most importantly, we can go next door and invite the neighbour over for a coffee. We can go across the road and invite the neighbours over for a barbecue. We can go down the street a bit and talk to people about how they're going, like how the kids going. What can we do to help you? What can we do to serve you? It's a different mindset. It's a whole different ball game, because in the past we were rushing from church service to conferences, from conferences to another, situation where it's just like consuming from a time point of view. But our hearts are always wanting to be one-on-one in the community, where we could actually not just tell people about Jesus, but actively show them about Jesus. Because it's so important, right? As Christians, we have this mindset that we've only got we all have a certain amount of time on the earth. But all of us have to give an account for the time that we use. I believe God wants us to use that wisely. He wants us to be smart about what it is we do and how we do it. For those who are non-Christians, I've got good news for you. Really, really good news. Honestly, I went back into my journal. I've got an old journal here. It's actually dated 2011. So I actually wasn't sure what I was going to talk about today. But I opened it up, and what jumped out at me and spoke to me was Jeremiah 29 verse 11. And I thought, okay, let's see what that goes. And it talks about, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. And like Christians go, oh yeah, that's awesome. It is. But in context, right? Let's look at the context of what happened at that time and that place when this actual scripture came out. The Israelites were once again under pressure. The Israelites at the time were actually under quite an amount of stress. And this is what God says to them. And it's like, okay, so what does that actually mean? So I drilled down a bit more, and I applied it to my own life. And I applied it to what I believed and what I thought it was about. So here's what I got. God does indeed know the plans that he has for us. That's pretty easy. He created us. He knows the plans he has for our lives. It's already mapped out. The whole focus in relation to how it works is we still get to choose. And that's sometimes not easy. Sometimes we choose to go along with the plan that God has for our lives, and other times we choose not to. But you know what? He loves us just the same. He loves you when you're walking down the street doing what it is he's got for your life, and he loves it when you're still struggling with understanding about what it means for you. It never changes. But here, it says, ultimately, he will give us a glorious future. But as we walk out our lives in this, and I call it current, crazy world, let's remember that the best growth for our lives comes when we persevere, when we go through interesting and challenging times. If things were easy, life would be easy. But life's not about being easy. Life's about growing. Life's about developing. Life's about learning who we are. So oftentimes God doesn't allow us to escape from situations that oftentimes we think, oh, come on, I need a miracle right now. Otherwise, my business, my relationship, our situation is going down the toilet. And you say, come on, God, you've got this. And so what sometimes God does is he doesn't got it. He lets us go through the process, but he never leaves us in the process. And what he helps us to develop is perseverance. And at the end of it all, we come out more joyful. We actually come out with a bit more hope about us in relation to what we've just experienced in life. Because in Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5, it also says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. I've got myself, whoa. So before I was even I'll use the term nicely, and my mum and dad's thoughts, God already had me mapped out. He knew all about me. He knew about who I am. who I was going to be, and I had a lot of stretching times along my life. When I first became a Christian, I'd never been into a church before. Oh no, sorry, I back up. I had been into a Sunday school situation when I was much younger growing up. Unfortunately, I was asked to leave and not come back. But that's okay, it was a learning curve for me. And then I ended up going to church once, and then ended up encountering Jesus. For the first time in my life, I knew nothing about it. I actually used to believe that God was the guy up in the moon. I used to look up there and think, there's God, he's sitting in the moon. And he's looking down at me. When I was about 6 years old, I used to look up at the moon at night. I think, oh, there's God, he's up there looking at me. Because that's where I thought he was. But getting an understanding that, hey, God wasn't just in the moon, God actually wanted to live in me. And I didn't get that realization until I was 18 years of age. And from the ages of 12 to almost 18, I crammed in a whole lot of living. Within 6 years, my lifestyle wasn't overly positive. My second car was an ambulance. That was because I spent a lot of time at the hospital. That's okay. And so when I came to the realization that God didn't actually just live on the moon, he actually made the moon. He wanted to live inside of me. Everything changed for me. Everything changed. It didn't come about knowing God, it came about relationship with God. Knowing that he wanted me to encounter him every day of my life. And knowing that he knew that I was going to make mistakes. Believe it or not, I still make mistakes. But God still loves me through the whole process. So, it says down the bottom here, it says, by grace, I've been saved. And it's through faith, believing in God and Jesus. And it said it's not something that I've done, because I could never do that. I used to always believe once even I'd become a Christian, that the harder I worked, the more closer to God I got. It was unreal. It was not realistic. In fact, it wasn't even the truth. It says, not of my own doing, it is a gift. The gift of God. And I just want to say to you today, God has a gift for each one of you. And his gift is that he wants to be in a relationship with you. Nothing else. That's it. There's no, it might be for some, fireworks display. And I've heard some people say they've seen fireworks once they've given their heart to Jesus, or the rainbow in the sky. It's an intimate thing on the inside. Because God speaks to your heart. He gives you an understanding about how much he wants to encounter and meet with you on a daily basis. And it's all about acknowledging who he is and saying, God, I can't do life without you. So many people going through this world right now, through the COVID, through life, trying to cope on their own, trying to do things themselves. The good news is, God's got it covered. COVID did not surprise God. The American elections did not surprise God. Whatever happening in the world isn't a surprise to God. He's got it all mapped out. Our journey is to step into where it is he has you and just go with God. Sometimes you do not see the whole plan. Sometimes you only see a small portion of the plan. You've just got to keep moving with what God places in your heart to do, and do the best you can. So my encouragement for you today, have I got much time left? Yeah. Excellent. My